Welcome back, everybody. This is Life Coach Labs. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm joined today by my friend, Chaz Wilson. Hi, Chaz.
Man, Chris, I'm so excited to be with you. This is awesome. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, you and I've had some chance over the years to do different kinds of podcast episodes. I've spoken at your event, Connect, several times. And I think the more that I lean into just who you are, I appreciate where you come from a place of, there's a lot of, in the business world, there's a lot of people talking about growth and a lot of marketing stuff to buy out there these days. And what's so cool about you is you've stayed true to the roots of relationship. And I think that, this episode, I'm excited to explore with you how you grew a national network. Because I think our ability as life coaches to grow a network is critical. If you get distracted by Facebook ads and content, you're going to miss the livelihood that is relationship in your business. So I'm going to explore that, and then we can go further into some other things as we go. But maybe give us a little background, like what would before being the CEO and founder of Master Networks, like where were you, what'd you do, and how'd you decide networking was going all in on that?
Yeah. So just real high level and brief, I spent 10, 11 years in the real estate industry. And what I realized when in 2007, 8, 9, as the market started to go down, and it felt like it was all of a sudden, I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt like all of a sudden what really helped me navigate that at that time was my network, the people I had built relationships with, and it insulated me to some extent. And then through some decisions and partnerships that didn't work out, I decided that the real estate industry at that time wasn't going to work for me. And I also felt called to something different. And I think that's what a lot of life coaches have too, right? You do it because you feel a calling to impact and do something greater. And that's what I felt. And I realized, I looked up one day and I was like, I built this network. I know how to do this. And maybe that's a business that I could teach others how to network and build these relationships. And so very simply stated, I wrote it out kind of on a napkin idea, and we launched a group, and then a second and a third, and then it just started over the years to take off. And now for 11 years, and again, that's high level, I totally get it, but 11 years of building these networks to thousands of members in over 26 states, and making an impact.
Yeah. There's, one of the things you said already that I love is the insulating that relationship does. At the time of this recording, we could be looking at a recession. We've been running on a steady growth level for longer than you would normally in a market.
Oh, totally.
So there's bound to be a correction coming. And I just love it. I love the idea that a network and relationships can insulate you when a market shifts like that.
Yeah. And so, but here's the thing you're saying, which is so important, is now's the time to build it.
Right.
When it's just like, I always joke, it's a lot like like a home equity line of credit, right? When you need the money, the bank won't loan it to you. Right. Like I learned that early on in my life. I was like, I've grown a business. I need some funds. I have some equity in my company. And they're like, but you have no money. I'm like, I know, that's why I'm here. And, and they're like, no, but see, you have to actually have some for us. And it just never made sense to me. It's a lot like that with a network, right? It's like, when I need it is not the time to go build it. I need to build it now. So that if I need it later, because we all will. I mean, there's no question. I don't care how wealthy and experienced, and you always need people, and they need you. And so now's the time to build it.
Well, I think from at face value, people would say they agree with that statement. Yeah, we need people. People need us. Like that makes sense. But there's a breakdown. I think when you look at how many people are actually actively investing in building a network, like what do you think is the breakdown? Why don't people do it?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I think number one, they think it's hard. I think it's easier than ever. We could dive into that. Number two is and this is, I get it. And I'm probably similar in this sense, is that you can't always see from a business standpoint, the return on the relationship. What's the return? Because a lot of people are measuring a metric, right? I can run a Facebook ad and see that it didn't work and I lost my money, and zero return.
Right. I can track how much money I lost. Right.
Right. Which seems to be what's happening lately, right? It's an interesting swing back. So I think that's it, right? It seems difficult, and I don't know what the return is going to be. And because it's difficult, or because I don't see a return, I think it's even more difficult. And I just don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah. Have you found a way besides, tracking how many referrals you get. Like what was your answer to that return?
So yeah, like I'll give you an example, and it's hard because everybody's business is different,
Sure.
but I'll just give you mine. Like here's the equals, the equation, and then I could go back and share with you how we got there. But I built this relationship with this woman who has a lot of influence in one of our ideal candidate and categories is real estate agents. That's an ideal area for us. And she has a massive following. And because I built that relationship, she reached out and said, hey, would you speak on my stage? And I just shared this with somebody and they're like, man, this really changes the game and how you think about it. I'm like, yes. I could go, hey, it's $10,000 for me to speak at your event. Instead, I said, you have all this influence over people that I want to get in their world too. And so why don't you just have me at your event? I'll speak for free. I'll even cover all my own expenses, et cetera. But every person that joins your program, let's put them into my program and let them build chapters of Master Networks. And she was like, awesome. And I said, it'll add value to your coaching program, right? So you can, because I'm giving you all my content and stuff for free. And then when they start chapters, here's the thing, Chris, a quick fast forward on this. 70 people joined on the spot. And so she's paying me $500 per person. So I can measure this one, right? Like
sure, right.
$500 per person. So 35,000 plus every one of those will start a chapter of Master Networks. Anyway, I did all the math. It comes out to over $400,000 annualized for that one opportunity on stage.
Yeah.
And I started looking at it differently. I'm like, that could turn into 10 or 20 of those. Who knows, right?
Right.
And that doesn't, here's the balance and the rub people have is like, yeah, but I'm building a relationship and it feels icky if I charge money. Like that, you got to get over that. Like,
right. Well, keep going.
Well, no, I mean, like that's the problem is that, and I often say it too. I get misquoted or misunderstood in this. I'll say be relational over transactional. And what people misunderstand about that is they'll say, so do I never ask for business? I'm like, no, you ask for business. But what you do is you put the relationship above the transaction. So if you've ever been in a negotiation or a transaction where it doesn't feel right and you feel like it's just not landing and stuff, they're probably the transactions trumping the relationship. I have one of those right now. I have somebody who keeps coming back to me from a speaker standpoint, and they're like, but let's add this and let's add this and let's add this. And I'm like, I thought we already established it. I thought, why are you making it more difficult? Now the relationship's strained because the transactions seems to be trumping the relationship.
So one of the things you said that is kind of living in the background of that story is I think life coaches, and I think people in general, I think we don't flex the muscle of our vision. I think what we tend to do is we tend to try to build networks for the next coaching client. Right. And what you had going into that relationship was not only a vision of the bigger picture you're trying to build, but you also had the container to invite people into. So you didn't need that one person who invited you to be to have a price for that one person, because you had a vision for a bigger picture and a container to hold the people. And I think a lot of times life coaches don't think about their container because their container is one-on-one coaching, let's say. And that's just, when you see it that way, you can't see more opportunity because all you can see is like, I only have X amount of spots left in my calendar this week because you only have so many hours. And so I think vision's actually a really interesting piece to what makes that work.
Yeah. And
I hadn't thought about that before.
Well, yeah. And how well can you transfer that vision to others so that they can see it? And there's another component there, and I don't know if this takes us down a different trail, but one of the things that's really been on my mind about this lately in building my network is, do I make it easy to do business with? There are a lot of people that make trying to be in their network very difficult. And I'm like, why? The people I love to work with make it easy. And so I question that myself. I'm like, do I make it easy to work with me?
What's an example of hard? How would somebody make it hard to be in their network?
Oh man, like for example, I did what we call a face-to-face, right? Zoom, just like this. So we're over Zoom right now, and like I can have a face-to-face conversation, whether in person or over technology. And it was a first introduction, and it was like we did my bond method, and at the end of it, we're looking for opportunities we could develop, and which I'd go into the bond method in a minute. But we get to it, and it was like, well, what about? And I could see several opportunities. I'm like, well, what about this opportunity? Well, we could, but. And then it's like all these contingencies upon it. I'm like, this is like, I'm not even incentivized. I'm not excited. Like, this
Mhm.
doesn't feel good. Why can't we just figure something out and make this easy to do?
Mhm.
But it just got super complicated to the point where I'm like, I'm not even interested. In fact, to be brutally honest, I'm not even sure I want to like continue the conversation at all, because
Right.
where I thought this could go and get exciting for both of us now is just not.
That's really interesting, because I had a conversation with somebody like that the other day who, if you look from the outside looking in, fairly successful, like they've built something. And we had this conversation, and I was trying to find other ways to provide content for them. Like, can I write for free on your blog? What can I
Yeah,
do for you? And
yeah.
they're like, well, to be on our blog would be like this. Like, they had all these conditions for me to give them free content. And I was like, I think like,
Yeah, you're missing it.
yeah, I got like turned off. I was like, it's always so hard to work with you. It's kind of how I left the conversation. Like, cause I've tried before. I'm just like you said, I'm just not sure I want to do the relationship even.
Well, and so think about that for a second. This might be a really good breakthrough. Like, this is what I think stops people from growth. Is I just believe personally that if you're struggling to grow your business, if you're struggling to create revenue for your business, there's probably a link between how you are. So if you're struggling as a producer, there's probably a link to how you are as a consumer. Right.
Mm.
So if I'm always asking for discounts, if I'm always making it hard to buy, and like, oh,
Yep.
guess what? You probably sell like that too. And that's like, I would bet this person you talked to, and I don't know who you're even talking about, but I would bet they make it difficult on the consumer side too, let alone the producer side. It's like, maybe if you just made
Yeah.
things easy every which way,
Yeah.
and just go, you know what, things tend to work out for me. Let's figure it out.
I was just mapping a training I'm getting ready for, and it was looking at in offers and in pricing of offers.
Yeah.
It's interesting how an old mindset we tend to have is, I'm going to create terms for this coaching contract. Like, it's this many months, and it's and if you cancel early, it's like we put all these terms on it to protect me. Like, the old mindset is protect me.
Yeah.
Protect me. And I think, especially if you're a life coach, we have really big hearts, and that's been stepped on many times, and we've been taken advantage of. And I think we start to try to find ways to protect ourselves from the big bad consumer, from
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Right.
people that we're trying to serve. But the new mindset would be moving from like a protect me to serve them. And all of a sudden, everything gets easier, because if you're not concerned about protecting yourself, you're like, well, like you said, how do I make this easy?
Well, and like, I have some business coaching programs and stuff, and like my highest level one, I charge 25 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to it and said, okay, but and so I agree, but I want to add something to what you just said. Maybe push a little bit on something. But I also think by having some term, you protect the person who's now purchased your program, because they're committed to it. So for example, I have done all different, like, I've been in this game for a long time, and I've done all different things. So one of the things I started to realize from my own experience, nobody else, but my own experience, is that I moved my higher program. This is fascinating to me, and I'm actually digging this right now. Like, okay, so I'll give you a real life example. So I had a program that was $197 a month. Okay. Very loose terms, in the sense of like, we wouldn't take people to collections or anything like that. But like, we were chasing it constantly. And here's the funny thing, they weren't showing up. And we were struggling to grow that program. Okay, so I launched my $25,000 program. They have to pay in full for the whole year. And then that's the easiest term. It's just pay in full. That's the only term.
Right.
That's it.
You're
But
done.
what I went and did, this is a little thing I learned from a friend of mine. I went and found a funding company who had to approve my program. So I had to go through this sort of like 24-hour thing. I had to send them content, videos, things that I do.
Yeah.
They go through an underwriting. It's really, I'd never heard of it before. And then I came across it, and then they approved my program. And then I can send people to it. They just have to, I think the minimum criteria is they have to make 40 grand a year and 620 credit score minimum, and they will qualify.
Wow.
They get their money. They get approved within 2 hours. They get their money within 48 hours, I think it is. And I get paid in full. And now they make payments to them.
Right.
And so what it's done though, Chris, has really changed my whole view on this.
Yeah.
They are now like that making a monthly payment to me is now outside. It's like out the
Right.
door. It's in another room.
Yep.
Now we're focused completely on delivering,
Mm.
and they're focused on receiving because they're not worried about the payment thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Just a
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I love that stuff. That's so good. I'm curious if we go back and look at sort of the mile markers of growth. How many members do you have now in your national network at National Network?
Yeah, we're about to, by the end of this year, we'll surpass 4,000 members.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Got it. That's 11 years, 4,000. I'm sure there are some moments where you had like upticks. There was like
Oh yeah.
ceilings that you broke through. Can you think of some of like, I guess people listening to this podcast, I'm guessing they're not at 4,000 members in their own network. So how, like, what's the first ceiling you bump into in expanding, growing a network, and how did you break through it?
Yeah, well, the first ceiling is what most people do, we were no different, is we went to the first people we knew, right? So you have a limited amount of people, 10, 12, 15, like that you really have relationships with. I always hear it's like, oh, I want to get with so-and-so, they know everybody. So what? Do they have influence with them?
Right.
I mean, the phone book knew everybody too, but they didn't have any influence. Like,
right.
So you first expand to who you know and friends and family and all that kind of stuff. And then you kind of like, that's where you stop. And that was the first ceiling, is like, we talked to everyone we knew about joining our network, and we didn't have anybody else. But then this multiplier thing happens, where as you work with people who are influential, they start to now, and it's funny, it's just like anything else, right? It's like that hockey stick thing that goes up.
Yep.
It was just like slow. Is this worth it? Are we doing the right thing? And then boom, broke through. And I actually think we're in one of those again right now. So like, if you hit me up again in 12 months, you may see it like the numbers are completely different, because what I've done is each time I'm leveling up the kind of relationships, meaning it's funny how we flock together. Oh, I only have 1,000, or I have, let's say 100 people in my network. Well, guess who I'm reaching out to? I'm reaching out to people maybe I have 125, right? But now what I'm doing is I'm going out to people who have influence with like thousands of people. And so the multiplier just starts to like go big.
Two questions on that. One, who did you have to be? How did you have to think differently, be differently in order to be attractive to those people? And then two, how did you approach them?
It's funny, Chris, like, first of all, I'm just going to give you some credit, because I've said this to you before. Like, I think you're one of the best interviewers, because you ask questions that, like, I could get on 10 podcasts and they're going to ask me the same questions. I'm totally prepared for it. Like, you just hit me with a question that, what I love about this question, I may not have a fully fleshed out answer, and your listener may be like, why'd you have this guy on? But here's the point. I have thought about this a lot, and I'm going to give you just some really brief context. You have to be interesting as an attractive character for people to go, let me pay attention to you. But you have to learn how to be interested in that person when you get in front of them. But there's this thing that's happening. Like, I will show up to events, and I haven't put my finger on this yet. But I've been to, I think, 8 speaking things that I spoke at. And there are people who have way more influence, way bigger deal. And I have been able to, and I don't know how to codify this yet, Chris. And when I do, maybe you can have me back on and I'll share it deeper. Like, I can walk into that room and sort of command a presence. And I don't know how I do it yet. Like, I haven't quite even put my own finger on it. It's something I'm doing. But I really do think you have to sort of command a level of confidence. Because if you meet somebody who's operating at a really high level and you are just unsure and not confident and not comfortable in your own skin and all that, they will just sniff it right out and you're done. And it doesn't mean cocky. It doesn't mean overly confident. There's some balance there I haven't quite figured out, but I'm just comfortable in my own skin with these folks. And I treat them like normal humans. I ask them great questions. I'm interested in what they do. I want to add value for value's sake. And maybe as I'm saying it out loud, maybe it's because I've done something and proven something over here. I don't feel like I have to prove anything to them, where I think everyone else is walking and going, look at me, I'm over here. I just don't have to do that. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating to codify, because I think there is something energetically that happens when I know that if I'm the influencer, if I'm the person that you're reaching out to that has more impact in your networking with me, if you seem insecure or you're puffing and trying to come off bigger than you are, like I can smell that.
Yeah.
I think the flip side of it is, if you, even if you don't have as much success as me, if you seem, like you said, in your skin about it, if you're human about your mistakes, and that nobody gets it right, like nobody's perfect, and we all have dreams, like all of a sudden my humanity recognizes your humanity, and it's just back to the easy versus hard. It's just easy to be with you.
Yeah. I think part of growing that network as a life coach is, sorry, this is just an additional thought to that. Like,
Yeah.
I think when I look at people and I get opportunities, you know, this about me is I get opportunities to get in front of a lot of people, and that just gets amplified each year. But I will listen to people present on their business, or I'll get introduced to them and say, I'm a life coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a health coach, I'm a this. I think probably the biggest challenge that stands in front of a life coach growing their business is themselves. Meaning, like, you are a walking product of everything you're talking about. So again, if I was coming to you going, I'm a networking guy and I don't know how to codify networking, I don't know how to tell you how to network, I don't have a network.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
really hard for you to look at me and go,
yeah,
I should trust what you're going to tell me.
Right.
And likewise, I have had
Yeah.
life coaches in front of me or talking to me, and it's like,
it's really good.
you got to prove something. You got to actually go be a product of your own product before you can come tell me.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
as they do that, they'll grow their network.
It's really interesting, because I think part of a lot of life coaching happens in the wounds of things and healing, getting to wholeness. And I think a lot of life coaches do deep work around those areas. However, I think what people are wanting in life isn't the healing. What they want is the life on the other side of healing, right? Like healing is just a stop on the journey of the life I'm really here to live. And so to your point, I think a lot of times as a life coach, it's easy just to focus on what the client is trying to do with their life, rather than looking at what do I want to do with my life. And this is where I find life coaches are often short in vision. Like, you need more vision, because that's the other half of life, getting past the wounds. So anyway, just to your point, I think if you're a life coach that doesn't have a vision, and all you're here to do is help me get to wholeness, I'm like, I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, if the pain is bad enough, then that'll resonate for now. But once you've got me to wholeness, like, then what? And I think people are looking for vision, because where there's vision, people flourish, you know? So
and they prosper, and
right.
And it's then helping transfer that vision, right? And I talked about this actually yesterday at an event I spoke at. There's one thing to have a vision, there's one thing to even talk about a vision, but the other is to transfer the vision to somebody else that can see it, and now it becomes a movement that you move together in. And that's the skill. I think that's the skill of connecting people in the network to catch the vision and transfer it to them. Now you've created a movement.
Tell me, I know time-wise, we could talk forever. For the sake of time, give me a sense of what 5+1. I can see over your shoulder there. 5+1 is it's a poster of your book.
Yeah, and thank you for asking it. So, and this is so timely and timeless truths for a life coach.
Yep.
Any business owner, quite frankly, I wrote it very within a framework that any business owner, and that's the thing, is like, often as coaches, we forget that we also have to run a business. Otherwise, we've got nobody to serve.
Right.
And so 5+1 is that framework. It's 5 business disciplines: thinking, targeting, tracking, timing, and team building. And then the +1 is the master skill, which is the skill of connecting through networking. And I say it's a master skill because, honestly, if you can connect with other people, and the ways that we teach that, if you connect with other people, you can even lack in skill, you can make up in your connectivity with other people. The deficiencies will be made up through your connections. And so that's why the master skill is so important to master,
right?
Is learning how to grow and impact that network.
I know you have an acronym, BOND, B-O-N-D. Can you just, in a nutshell, walk me through?
Yeah, so really simply, it's how I connect with everyone. It's how I connect with athletes, actors, celebrities, business professionals. I just use BOND, and BOND stands for build on a common interest. Very simple. In fact, I just met an actor 250 films, movies, TV shows, not episodes, films. Like he's been in the business 40 years. You'd know him. I'm not going to name drop. It doesn't matter.
Wow.
But we were at an event and I met him, and I guess how I started the conversation about red hair, because he has red hair. And everyone's going to try to like Google who that is. But anyway, but I just said, hey, we started building on common interest. O for occupation exploration. So then I started talking to him about, hey, I know you're in a lot of films. What's something you're working on? Are you working on any projects? He's like, yeah, I'm in this movie, this thing, this. And then needs discovery is the end. Right now I'm moving to needs. Who are you trying to connect with? And what he told me, which was fascinating, is he says, I'm trying to not just stay in acting, but I really love to do is life coaching. I love to coach people. I love to help them.
Yeah.
And so who can you connect me to? And then D was develop an opportunity. So he moved right into that, like who can you connect me to? So D is develop the opportunity.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, I love how simple it is, but when you apply it, because I know like this part, I feel like I'm good with people. So when I'm to your point, like I feel like I can talk to somebody who's making no money or somebody who's making a ton of money, but it's just this framework of building on common interests, occupation exploration is such a natural progression from one thing to the next. The conversation has itself, like
and
if you stay inside of that.
Right. But really flip it on its head, because everybody typically, if you go to any networking thing, and the reason why people don't like networking and why is because everyone's going in to develop an opportunity first.
Right.
And where they started is, hey, tell me what you do. And somehow their identity is attached to what they do. Where when build on a common interest is a foundation, maybe that's all you get through. And I just learned about Chris. I learned everything about him. And then I say, hey, we should schedule another lunch or coffee or face-to-face or whatever, and get in front of each other. Now I continue down bond and take time to do that.
Take time,
right. By the way, it's so easy to do that. And understand this as a life coach. When you know your ideal client, there's somebody that's already done all the heavy lifting to get their attention. Somebody's already done it. By the way, this lady who I went on her stage, she's already got all the real estate agents. And I said it right from stage. I'm like, she did all the work to get all of you here and invited me. Why? Because I have a relationship with her and she put me in front of you. And now I can tell you all what I do.
Right.
So would it be better to try to form the relationships with all those realtors in that room, or with her to get me in front of all those realtors?
Right. Yes. Wow. I mean, there's all kinds of implications. If you're listening to this, re-listen to it, because there's all kinds of places that will challenge maybe how you've been doing it or how you've been thinking about it. Because inside of relationship, one, if I had to summarize some things, relationship will insulate you in any type of market shift. Who you put in your sphere of influence, who you put, you could be putting all the individuals, or you could be finding the influencers. And I think that's a good challenging the status quo too. If you all want to learn more about 5+1, Chaz, where can people go to get the book, and where can they learn more about Master Networks?
Yeah, and go to masternetworks.com or Chaz Wilson, CHASWILSON, chazwilson.com, and or hit me up on any social media.
Yeah, that's perfect. Chaz, thanks so much. Appreciate you. And
always a pleasure.
Here. Well, that's it, gang. Thanks for listening to this episode of Life Coach Labs. Before I let you go, I want to invite you to two things. One, there is a companion Facebook group to this show called Life Coach Labs. Go to Facebook and search Life Coach Labs. You can see it here on the screen. If I scroll through, this is a companion group to the show because it gives me a chance to get to know you. I want to know you as much as you listen to me and my guests. I want to know you. I want to hear about your important work. I want to support you. So please head over to Facebook and join the free Life Coach Labs Facebook group. Number two, let's jump over to the next window here. If you are looking to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week, I have documented my community model, right? How do you do community? How do you build a membership model for your coaching that incubates the people you want to serve and do it in as little as 4 hours a week? You can head over to lifecoachlabs.com/model. You can see it right here on the screen, lifecoachlabs.com/model, and learn more about how to create recurring revenue in as little as 4 hours a week. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode. And until next time, be well.